A winter wind prowled the narrow streets of Vatican City, the night the Cardinals gathered for what was supposed to be a routine briefing. Marble corridors that normally echoed with polite Latin greetings suddenly pulsed with hush-hush urgency. Behind the bronze doors of the Apostolic Palace, just after the Angelus bells fell silent, Pope Francis's private secretary unfolded a single sheet of paper and, in a voice that trembled, read the Holy Father's final wish. The room froze. 60 pairs of scarlet shoulders stiffened as the message reverberated off Renaissance frescoes. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, Chito to friends, papabile to journalists, stood near the window. When the reading ended, he reached for the sill as if the world tilted. The Cardinals watched the color drain from Tagle's cheeks. Tears welled, slipped past his rimless glasses, and splashed on the polished floor. It took only seconds, but centuries seemed to pass between those heavy breaths. Francis's wish was not a list of liturgical clarifications. It was a dare, a plea, and perhaps a prophecy, all distilled into 3 lines of neat blue ink. And though no microphones captured the moment, the Vatican rumor mill roared to life by dawn. Why did those words hit Tagle so hard? What burden had the Pope just shifted from his aging shoulders onto the younger man's? To answer that, we must step back, far from Rome's marble, to dusty Buenos Aires streets, where a boy named Jorge Mario Bergoglio first learned that the gospel is most credible when whispered in the ear of the forgotten. Jorge was the eldest of 5 in a family of Italian immigrants who scraped together a life among meat-packing shifts and subway commutes. He discerned priesthood in the steamy kitchens of his grandmother's apartment, where faith tasted like chickpea stew and smelled of linoleum wax. As a young Jesuit teacher, he discovered a knack for sneaking theology into soccer banter, winning students' hearts before challenging their minds. But it was the dirty war of the 1970s, when disappearances turned church basements into morgues, that carved empathy into Bergoglio's bones. Night after night, he smuggled refugees through back alleys, a black market Samaritan shielding lives the dictatorship deemed disposable. Those scars never healed. They hardened into a vow. If he ever held authority, he would spend it on mercy. The vow defined his papacy. When 115 cardinals elected him the first pope from the Americas in March 2013, reporters expected a transitional caretaker. Instead, they got a 76-year-old firebrand who rode the elevator with janitors, paid his hotel bill in person, and blasted global capitalism before he'd even unpacked. Within weeks, he ditched the papal apartments for a 2-room suite, swapped a gold pectoral cross for one of iron, and slipped out at night to feed the homeless beneath Bernini's colonnade. Francis's reforms came fast. A council of 9 cardinals to clean up the curia, a financial watchdog to audit the scandal-plagued Vatican Bank, and a worldwide synod asking ordinary Catholics, from Amazonian catechists to Appalachian teens, what they genuinely needed from Rome. He published Laudato Si, a green encyclical that made oil executives squirm, and Amoris Laetitia, which cracked a window for divorced believers to breathe again. Conservatives grumbled. Some called him reckless. Yet millions felt the church exhale. Pilgrims no longer kissed his ring. They hugged him. Muslim refugees wept when he washed their feet. Prisoners wrote that for the first time, a pope sounds like someone who might sit on the bunk and listen. But time, like tide on stone, wore him down. Chronic sciatic pain bent his back. A colon surgery stole 33 centimeters of intestine. By late 2024, respiratory infections forced him to address audiences from a wheelchair. And in the first week of April 2025, after presiding over a pared-down Easter vigil, Francis caught pneumonia. Doctors whispered the prognosis. Francis simply asked for Padre Pio's cross and a legal pad. He wrote at the desk where he had signed every encyclical. Witnesses say the ink smudged. Whether from shaking hands or quiet tears, no one knows. When he finished, he handed the page to his secretary with a smile that looked tired but wildly free. Line 1. May the Church forever choose the poor, for they are Christ's true throne. Line 2. May the next shepherd come from the margins, that the flock might smell like the streets. Line 3. Tell my brother Tagle, do not be afraid. Nothing more. No name etched in marble, no legal directive. Yet the implication was atomic. Francis wanted a pope radically aligned with the periphery, and he believed Tagle was ready. Luis Antonio Tagle grew up in Manila's Sampaloc district, where jeepney horns were louder than church bells. His father sold dry goods, his mother managed a laboratory, and together they taught Chito 2 lessons. Listen before you speak and laugh before you judge. At 15, he entered seminary, powered not by ambition but by a mischievous curiosity about how scripture could sound in street Tagalog. Decades later, that skill would make him a YouTube sensation. Seminarians clipped his homilies into viral sound bites. Ordained in 1982, he studied in the United States, earning a doctorate on Vatican II, but he spent free weekends serving soup kitchens and open mic nights. By 2011, at 54, he was named Archbishop of Manila. Cameras loved him. So did coconut vendors who swore he never left a barrio without blessing every baby thrust at him. Francis noticed. In 2013, Tagle hosted the Pope's Manila visit, drawing the largest papal crowd in history. 6 million souls, braving typhoon rain to hear 2 men preach compassion through soaked microphones. Their bond cemented. Francis later appointed Tagle to run Caritas Internationalis. When bureaucratic brawls erupted in 2022, Tagle took the fall for alleged management flaws. An external audit cleared him, but critics still mutter that he's too nice to govern. Francis evidently disagreed. He elevated Tagle to prefect of evangelization, effectively making him Rome's chief storyteller. As of April 26, 2025, 135 cardinals under 80 will file into the Sistine Chapel. Of those, 108 wear red hats Francis himself bestowed, a historic majority sympathetic to his agenda of inclusion. Statisticians give Tagle a 3-to-1 edge, but numbers in Rome are like frescoes, beautiful, deceptive, and prone to cracks. Inside Domus Sanctae Marthae, the hotel where cardinals sleep during conclave, whispers travel faster than espresso refills. One camp, nicknamed the Pian Purists, yearns for a doctrinal sentinel and Court Secretary of State Pietro Parolin. Another rallies behind Hungarian Cardinal Péter Erdo, eyeing him as a compromise bridge pope. A smaller but loud bloc flirts with Nigerian Cardinal Francis Aranze, dreaming of Africa's first pontiff. Tagle's path to 90 votes seems smooth until you map rivalries. Asian electors resent Manila's outsized profile. American conservatives distrust his social justice streak. European traditionalists fear being sidelined by a Filipino who quotes TikTok saints. And yet, many moderates admit privately, no one else preaches the gospel in memes and tears quite like Tagle. Francis planned every detail. He refused the triple casket of lead, cedar, and bronze. "Wood will do. Christ had none," he said. He directed that Roma's homeless distribution network receive the budget reserved for foreign dignitary accommodations. Presidents sat on folding chairs beside paraplegic pilgrims. The homily, delivered by Cardinal Raniero Cantalamessa, contained 0 Latin, just the parable of the prodigal son, told in 7 languages. When the coffin paused outside St. Peter's, a Syrian refugee choir sang Misericordia. Cameras zoomed. Tagle wept again, gripping the coffin's unfinished edges like a son refusing to let go of his father's coat. By 2030, estimates show 2/3 of Catholics will reside in the global South. In Manila, catechists teach under mango trees. In Kinshasa, Mass follows drum beats. In Sao Paulo, favelas build cardboard chapels. Meanwhile, pews empty across Europe. Francis knew the arc of faith bends toward barrios, not boulevards. His last wish, therefore, is not mere sentiment. It's demographic realism. Tagle embodies that shift. He jokes in 6 languages, dances tinikling with fisherfolk, and quotes both Aquinas and Marvel movies. For young Catholics scrolling despairing news feeds, he feels like proof that holiness can wear sneakers. Should white smoke signal a Filipino pontiff, headlines will gush. but honeymoon haze will fade by sunrise. The abuse scandal festers. Victim advocates demand tribunals with teeth. Climate activists expect divestment from fossil fuel funds. Economists warn the Vatican Bank still operates in opacity. LGBTQ Catholics plead for recognition, while bishops in Poland threaten schism at the slightest hint of change. Each problem is a live wire. Together they form a spiderweb of 2 millennia of tension. Tagle's admirers cite his disarming authenticity. He once hoisted a child with cerebral palsy onto his shoulders mid-homily and finished preaching as the boy giggled into the microphone. But authenticity alone cannot rewrite canon law or outfox curial power brokers who've survived 5 pontificates. Historians note that whenever the Church edges toward reform, internal pushback intensifies. John XIII convened Vatican II and died before implementing half of it. Paul VI legalized vernacular masses and lived to see vitriol. Francis opened dialogue on divorced couples. Bloggers called him a heretic. If Tagle follows suit, he may inherit enemies the day he dons white. Anonymous pamphlets already circulate, Dubia 2.0, accusing hyperpapal